Hello and welcome to the Wine Educate podcast, where we explore WSET education, study tips, and practical advice for wine enthusiasts and professionals. This is episode 21. It is Tuesday, March 4th. And as folks in New Orleans like to say, everywhere else, it's just Tuesday. But it is Mardi Gras Day in New Orleans. I am not in New Orleans. I am in France. So it's just Tuesday here as well. But not just Tuesday, because I am doing a boot camp. If you want to follow along with what we're up to, I'm going to be posting things on Instagram. So that is Wine Educate. That is our handle on Instagram. But today we're talking about evaluating the finish of a wine using the WSET SAT. So if you're still with me, congratulations for hanging in there with all of our structural components of wine. And this is sort of the final piece, right? Because if you look at the level 3 SAT under palate, we pretty much covered most of the things, most of the important testable things, I will say. And this is the last one. And it is by no means the easiest one. Finish. Okay. It is particularly difficult to define finish because there isn't a good definition of finish, okay? That is a problem. First of all, I will say that length and finish are the same thing, okay? So we'll just clear that up right away. I went to the Oxford Companion, my favorite wine book, to see what Jancis had to say about finish and or length. And, quiet, some crickets. So when I read the definition the Oxford Companion gives me, there some alarm bells go off a little bit. So the definition, much derided, meaning controversial or criticized, tasting term for wines whose impact on the palate is particularly persistent. Okay. And then there's just a tiny bit about colloids and flavor compounds, of which, more chemistry. I have to say, if someone is listening and you are a scientist and you specialize in flavor and human perceptions of flavor and taste and how all that works, please reach out to me. I would love to have you on the podcast. I have questions. We have questions for you. So the WSET textbook also doesn't get too succinct. There's about a paragraph that describes the things that go into what is considered a finish. This clearly is a bit of a controversial topic in that it is hard to define, but it is important. We need a definition because we get tested on it, right? And for the level 3, there is a possible 3 points at stake, all hinging on how you define and then rank your finish or length of the wine. So first of all, you get a point for evaluating the finish. So saying if it's short, medium minus, medium plus, or long. Then you do your BLIC. And the L in BLIC stands for length. So we need to, if we said medium plus or long finish, we give it a tick for that. And then that will directly result in our quality level and level of readiness for drinking. So there's 2 more points right there. So this is important. So I sort of gathered together the information from the book and information I learned when I did my ETP training in London and came up with a definition that I use in class that I think encompasses everything, but makes it maybe just a little clearer to help us make a decision on the finish. My summary is, finish is the persistence of multiple pleasant flavors after swallowing or spitting the wine. Okay, I'm going to unpack this a little bit because right away, I know you guys have questions and I'm going to address some of the most common questions I get in class. So here goes. One persistent flavor is not going to cut it, okay? You may have a wine that has been quite heavily oaked, and you get that vanilla. And the vanilla just, it stays and it stays and it hangs on there and it lingers, and it sure is sticking around. But it's just one thing. So we are not going to count that as a long finish. Here's another example. Beaujolais. I really love Beaujolais. And you can have a Beaujolais, maybe a Beaujolais Village, and you get that beautiful like raspberry note that just lingers and lingers. Again, that is one thing. So it doesn't constitute as multiple things. In the same vein, multiple unpleasant flavors don't count, okay? If you get a wine and you're like, oh, well, I still get vinegar and cowshed and that smell of when you're stuck behind a diesel truck on the interstate, sure, those are multiple things, but those aren't pleasant things. Those are really unpleasant things, and probably the wine is faulty. Okay, so I use the word persistent. So how long? All right, this is where I can run into some trouble giving you guys exact numbers. Count for 10 seconds and so on and so forth. I really don't like putting exact numbers on these things, especially because you all are in all different parts of the world and you have to calibrate your palate with your instructor. Your instructor might do this, might say, okay, if it lingers for 7 seconds, it's a medium finish. Great. Go by what they say because they're the one grading your paper, right? So I'm going to give you examples. I think examples maybe are more helpful. So let's have some examples of a short finish. Short finish is when the wine just really feels like it drops off or disappears, like it never happened, right? Some examples. A Pinot Grigio now then. I'm talking about the basic, inexpensive styles because we know there's some really great Pinot Grigios out there. But for a short finish, I'm talking about like your $15 Pinot Grigio from the grocery store. Beaujolais Nouveau, lots of really pretty red fruit on the palate, but it's gonna drop off pretty fast. And then maybe an entry level Sauvignon Blanc, say from Chile or South Africa. A medium finish. So medium finish, it doesn't quite drop off right away, but it lingers a little bit. Maybe, okay, I am going to say maybe like 3 to 5 seconds. Okay, maybe it just kind of lingers a little bit. Examples. An unoaked Chardonnay, maybe a Chablis, a Petit Chablis, maybe a Rioja, like a Crianza. Mid-tiered Cabernet Sauvignon, maybe from Chile or Australia. I would say the majority of wines fall into this medium category, okay? And don't forget, level 3, you do have your pluses and minuses to play with. This is another category I do a lot of hedging on because I'm allowed to. If I say a wine is medium, I'm going to give you the option of it being medium plus or medium minus as well. Maybe not medium plus. That's tricky because if I say medium plus, that puts it into a long finish on BLIC. So I have to be careful about those things. That is covered in another episode for another day. Does a wine have to have primary, secondary, and tertiary to have a long finish? No. It can have maybe even just all primary and still have a long finish. Your book uses the example of an ice wine. Ice wine, just pure sort of primary flavors, and it lingers for quite a long time. Also, some really good quality Mosel Riesling. We love the Peter Lauer wines here in the shop, and they never fail to disappoint, and the finish just goes on and on and on for those wines. All right, this is a biggie, and this is just going to take practice, right? Do not mistake the structural components for finish. And by that, I mean acidity, alcohol, and tannin. Acidity is particularly tricky. You guys get stuck on this one because, after you've finish the wine, your mouth may still be watering because of the acidity, right? But that's the acidity. That is a component. That is not a flavor. Be mindful of that. So a good way to practice this is to almost do like a separate tasting note for the finish, all right? So say you taste a wine, and then maybe 10, 15 seconds after you finish the wine, can you write down maybe 3 or 4 things that you are still tasting? So this is like a delayed tasting note, your finish tasting note. This is like a lanyap thing. You won't get tested on this, but maybe it'll help you in evaluating the finish. All right, my last tip is don't rely on your personal preferences and be objective in your assessment. I see this. I mean, we all have our personal preferences. We get a wine and we're like, oh, this is delicious and I love it. And you may be inclined to say, well, long finish. Just be mindful. Does it really have a long finish? We know you love it. I love it too. But think about it. Does it linger with multiple pleasant flavors? Okay. Well, that's finish. And with finish, we are wrapping up the structural components on the palate. So I want to tie it all up in a nice little bow. And on Thursday, we'll do another tasting note on a full-bodied red wine to put all these things together. If you live locally or are coming through New Orleans, we offer level 3 tasting workshops every now and again. I think we have 2 listed on the website right now. These are for everybody. They are not just for level 3 students. They're not even just for WSET students. Okay, if you just want to come and have a fun day tasting 6 whites and 6 reds, it really is great. And I implemented these tasting workshops to give my online students an opportunity to calibrate their palate with mine. So I always offer it the day before the exam. So they come in town for the weekend, do the all-day tasting workshop, which is included in the cost of an online level 3, and then take the exam the next day. And that has worked out really well. So far, so good. All passes. So thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful to you all, and I will see you again on Thursday.